This episode is brought to you by STAR, a Frost & Sullivan Executive Mind Exchange event for sales leaders on February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Register for the event at frost.com/Vengreso.
Before I can create value for people, the questions have to lead the way, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, you're interrupting people in any sale, even when I go to a presentation, I go and daydream about something else. How do you get me back engaged into the discussion? Ask a question. Absolutely.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Selling with Social, and I'm here with my friend, Mr. Rod Hairston, the CEO of NASP, which is the National Association of Sales Professionals. Rod, my friend, man, welcome to the show.
Mario, thanks for having me. I love your work, and I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you are, and thank you for that compliment, my friend. And it took a little time to get you coordinated here, but you're here, and what you guys are doing over at the NASP is super critical and important to helping really develop the sales profession. And we've got sales leaders, we've got sales people, we've got marketing leaders listening in right now. So I'd love for everybody to just get to know who the heck is the great Rod Hairston.
Well, I'm a very interesting person with multiple personalities. I'll just talk about a few of them today. Again, I started off really in the military, in the Navy, and worked for admirals and actually made it into a college program and got my degree, went into spec war, where I started learning influence, where you had to really learn how to influence yourself. You had to sell yourself in situations. I was with the mobile comm team, and we did the communication for the SEAL teams, DEA, CIA. And you had to really then learn how to influence some very strong personalities like Navy SEALs or the DEA or CIA agents. Was really interesting. From there, I got out of the military and decided I wanted to be my own boss, didn't know what I was doing. And I used what I learned to influence Anthony Robbins, and really grew with him as a master trainer, and did a lot of events with him. Very good friend. And in the meantime, I built my business based on studying those influence principles, right? Really understanding that sales is nothing more than value-based influence. And I know that the sales and marketing people listening to us today really believe in that value. And that's what we want to talk about today.
You've said something that is almost seemingly seems very cliche, but it is so far from how salespeople are engaging on the norm with buyers today, which is value-based influence. Like, we know this to be the case. We know that we should be doing this. But the problem is that in most cases, I would argue that we're not leading with value. And I personally, as the CEO of Vengreso, I get a bazillion different types of emails, and none of them have any value that people are bringing to me, from whether it's an email or a phone call, whatever the case might be. So I love your background. And did I hear you say correctly, the great Tony Robbins that you used to work with?
Yes, and still do in some of the events. But I started with Tony way back in 1995.
Wow.
I became a master trainer. I owned 2 franchises. I helped him with the United Artists, the partnership. I was a field sales rep for his sales team. So I learned going from city to city, promoting we used to call it strategic influence, and then it turned to competitive edge. We had to go sell Tony Robbins before he was Tony Robbins. And so you would go in front of sales teams, and you had to sell a $295 ticket for a day event. It was 100% commission. And we went to New York and LA and Philadelphia, Minneapolis, all around the country. And you learn sales. I mean, we learn influence. We learned that we had to create incredible value. We had to create $295 of value in a 45-minute workshop to justify people going to see someone who wasn't as famous yet. And so I want to talk about, what did we learn? What did I learn from Tony? What did I teach my team in order to do that? And again, it could start whether you're a marketing leader or a salesperson just starting in an organization. This can support you.
Well, talk about the art of persuasion. I mean, that's really the fundamentals right there of learning how to influence and persuade somebody, especially when you had an individual like Tony back then that didn't have the name or the brand behind him, right?
That's
yeah.
Right.
So I think that's going to be part of our conversation today is persuasion and how salespeople, should we be persuading? Is there a persuasion still in our job and function, or is it influencing? But before we get into that, I want to ask you a question, and that is, tell us something nobody would know about you by looking at your social profiles.
I don't believe this is in it, but I moved to Austin, Texas because I have a secret love into writing music, and I created an album. Well, I don't think we call it album anymore, a CD.
A CD.
Right.
A music track. Something like that.
Yeah, 8-track, cassette. No. I write music and I sing and I play the guitar, and I love it, and it's my secret passion. And I'm like trying to sneak into being a rock star at night. So during the day, I'm a CEO. At night, I'm a music freak.
Okay, so tell me the genre. Did you say rock or?
No, it's a little bit of rock. And because I'm not a musician by trait, I have my songs go from soul to country to rock. It's like all over the place. I haven't figured myself out yet, but people love it, and I just stay with it. And that just tells you I love all types of music because I wrote all types of songs.
All right. So by the time that this podcast is over, somewhere between now and the end, you're gonna have to give us something from one of your songs. You have to do some a cappella for us.
Oh my gosh! All right.
I got to hear some soul. I want to hear some soul coming out of on this podcast.
All right.
So going back to what I said earlier, you're talking about the art of persuasion, value-based influence. These are things that we know as sales people and as sales leaders are core attributes that we have to be focused on, that we have to develop. But talk to me a little bit about, I know you have a methodology. I think it's called the 12 Steps of Persuasion. Is that right?
Yes. And really looking at and breaking it down is 12 steps, but broken down into 3 different sections. And the first section is you really have to understand interpersonal intelligence or interpersonal communication in order to offer value to other people at the highest level. And interpersonal means communication with myself. And there's a few steps I want you to think about that sometimes we forget about. And I want you to recognize that everything that I'm talking about today, you already do. There's really nothing new out there. It's just, do you turn it on all the time? Are you intentional in your value-based approach? And so number one comes down to, before I can buy anything from you, before I can sell anything to you, there has to be a level of certainty that's created. And certainty, the feeling of certainty of something, is another word for it is called belief. I got to believe in myself. I think if you look at what makes Mario a very good businessman, a great host, is that there's a level of certainty and belief in his voice and his physiology and how he approaches his show that matters. And sometimes, guys, we forget to turn it on. We forget I leave thinking about the worst thing that just happened to me, or watching the news that's awful. And then I go right to an appointment and I'm going right into action without the belief. So that feeling of certainty, like really building those references in your mind. And so before I do any talk, before I do any sell, any influence, go talk to investors, partners, I remember who I am. I remember who I'm speaking to. I believe in them. I believe in myself. I believe in what we're talking about. And I want you to take belief like some really great sauce that you would put on food, and you put it over everything, and just trust the process, because there's so much of you that communicates more than words, and it needs beliefs to kind of convey that conviction that you want to convey.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That might
Absolutely.
make sense.
Yeah. It's kind of like you wouldn't compete in a race without visioning yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny. I have my kid, my youngest son now is 19. When he was 8, he kind of grew up with this way of thinking, and he was this really superstar athlete. And even at 8, and he had people would hang out. And I remember his friend coming up to him, asking him, and my back was turned. And so he didn't know I heard this conversation. But his little friend Jacob asked Roddy, my son Roddy, he said, that kid wants to race me over there. Do you think I can beat him? And Roddy looked at Jacob and looked at the kid, and he goes, well, when you race him in your mind, who wins?
Yeah. That's a great one.
And then Jacob at 8 goes, what? He goes, when you race him in your mind, who wins? And Jacob goes, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, you probably won't beat him.
Oh my goodness. At 8 years old?
8 years old. He's kind of he's always been you ought to see him at 19. He's very strange. And
my 8-year-old son never come up with that. And that's a great illustration.
Absolutely. And I learned a lot that day. I teach this stuff, and I learned from an 8-year-old because I teach it, but do I do it all the time?
Yeah.
Do I run through the process in my mind? Do I run the race? Do I win? Right?
That's a great point. Yeah. Run through the process. Do I win? And it was funny. I was just talking with one of my co-founders of Vengreso here. And one of the things that they had mentioned was it was hard for me in the beginning to see where you were going with Vengreso. And that you kept saying, this is where we're going. This is the vision. This is the vision. Stick to the vision. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Stay on this course. Now, fast forward a year and a half later, and some of the things that are happening in our business, that individual just said to me, thank you for seeing the vision, because I had a hard time seeing that. And now I see it. Now I can taste it. I can smell it along the path. And you're absolutely right. Do you walk through that process? Do you envision yourself winning? Do you see yourself, with this level of certainty and belief that you're going to master the sale or the opportunity or helping your customer, right?
Everything has got to be from inside out, not outside in. And most salespeople want to look at what's going on in the market, what's going on with my product, what was the last thing that happened to me, what was the last deal. And that's just not the way we're designed. We're designed with 100 billion brain cells. Everything about you, everything about your nature, your genius, your biology, the way your mind is wired is for you to go inside out.
Yeah.
And so you want to use what's already there, right? And belief is one of the most powerful ways to do it.
Yeah,
so
I love that. Belief. All right, so that was number one? We're gonna have to do like a 3-part series of this podcast.
Yeah, right.
Between you and I, we'll never get to number 5.
You know what? That's fine. I'll be glad to do another one with you.
All right, so we're on to number 1. It's interpersonal communication, or building that level of certainty and belief. And what's number 2?
Number 2 is physical expression. So to convey belief to other people and yourself, like how do I take it from the mental to the emotional? The way I take it from the mental to the emotional is that I convey the mental to the physical by changing the body to express that level of belief. So I gotta walk with a level of confidence. I gotta consciously turn confidence on and stop looking for it from outside sources. Like, do I look good today? Do I sound good today from outside? Well, no, confidence comes from an intrapersonal place, and it comes from belief. So I run the race in my mind. I know what value I'm offering. I see how I want it to end. I start thinking about all of these references that I have of like the references that I pick that were great. And I got this great energy, this great state. Now I got to change my physical expression. I got to put my shoulders back, and I have to convey to the customer and to myself that I'm offering value. And 55% of effective communication is physical expression, physiology. Make sure you show up. Have your turn on, right? Have your turn on. Now, again, a lot of people do this unconsciously. Mario, I'm sure you do this all the time, but it might be unconscious. It might be something that you do. You might drink your water. Boom, it's something that you do to turn on because, again, you come with a lot of conviction.
Yeah, yeah, interesting you say that. So as an example, this is on the stage for speaking. So I walk up to music, and that's my preferred methodology. And the music that I walk up to is Bruno Mars' "Uptown Funk You Up."
There you go.
So as soon as I hear it, I turn on, and that's my thing. And actually interesting, it comes from a very personal place because my boys, one of the first songs that they loved listening to, well, one's 8 and one's 4, at least at this right now, they're 8 and 4. And this came from a few years ago. And my boys, this was the very first song that they loved and they started dancing to. And that became our thing of turning on Uptown Funk You Up and rocking out here at the house. So for me, it's like, it reminds me very close to home. And that gives me my confidence, if you would, and helps me get my competence, if you would, to deliver. Now, it may be music. It could be something else, I think, in terms of physical expressions, or it could be looking good, could be, I don't know, it could be other things. But other than, that I just described, are there any other cues that,
and remember, like if you're presenting or you're selling and you're talking to a big investor and fear comes, well, fear is asking you, do you want to fight for it or do you want to flee? And you got to remember, if fear is there, then fight and flight is there. And you have to pick one. And I'd rather fight for its soul and from a soulful perspective by listening to Bruno Mars than freezing up and going into sort of the flight mode and not remembering what I'm going to say. So remember, it's imperative to, if fear is there, nervousness is there, go to fight. Use that energy, use that passion. Like any great athlete loves to be nervous, right? Because they use that energy. If you're not nervous or fearful, then it just makes you more powerful. So change your physiology, shoulders, a move, a song. Guys, again, mine is This Is How We Do It. That's the song that I choose. It's the same thing. That song has some really, really powerful references to me. And it's what I do to get myself in state and the move that I make. So pick your song, pick your saying, and get in state.
I love it. All right. Number 3.
Number 3 is, once you've developed this amazing belief system, right, and you're coming with a lot of references and a lot of certainty, and it's showing on your body, which turns this, I don't want it to go into arrogance. So you want it to be confident. And that confidence is confidence when it's externally expressed. What does that mean? Well, I got to have an external focus. It's not about me. And so many times, the most confident people will turn into the most arrogant people because they forget about who they're talking to. You have an audience, you have a customer. It's not about how great you look. It's not about your swag. It's all about the people that you're influencing or you're communicating to. And I think sometimes we forget that. So I'll ask myself certain questions internally to get focused on the customer. And I'll just say things like, how impactful is this going to be for their organization? And I'll say, who in this audience am I here to impact? I know everyone, but there's somebody here specifically that needs exactly what I'm saying. Who is it? And I'll go out and start looking for the person. So now I'm forgetting about myself, my fear, my doubts, and I'm now totally engaged, totally in state. And now I'm completely losing myself to the audience in a very powerful way, right? And now I'm inside out versus outside in. Go for it.
Did you call this number 3? Did you call it the external focus or
external focus? So instead of internal focus, external focus.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I got that. So that makes sense. So you go from the inside out, as you mentioned, right, and number 1 and number 2, to now, if I've got this belief, if I can see the vision, now I'm ready to be able to start looking at how I can help somebody else.
Absolutely. But right, I got to make that transition. And the transition is, I've been doing a lot of focus on myself and changing me. Now I got to give it to the audience. Now I got to think about the people that are listening. I got to get out of my own head, out of my own body, and I got to use what I've created. I got to deliver that energy out.
Right. And that makes total sense. And whether you're a speaker or whether you're a salesperson, the audience in this case is going to be your buyer, or it could be if you're a speaker, it could be your targeted audience.
Absolutely. And remember, Mario, I'm still backstage when I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. So I haven't even talked to anybody yet. I'm just preparing myself to When I do go on stage or when I do go talk to the customer, I am completely focused on their needs, their wants, and I'm taking my confidence, my belief, my competence, I'm taking all of that with me. Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, even when you go perform on stage as a musician, it's the same thing, right? I mean, whether it's something in life or personal, whether it's, selling, these 12 steps to persuasion that you are talking about can be applied in personal or in business.
Absolutely. 100%. And a lot of times, I remember doing a presentation in Fiji, and I was supposed to present on the fourth day of this 5 or 7 day conference. The fourth day, I get there, I'm all casual. And because my plane was late, they changed it around. I ended up being the first presenter, and I wasn't prepared. And so, and I'm speaking to these CEOs, and you really want to make an impact, but the people that got there earlier convinced the leaders to change it around. So I get there and I'm the first presenter. So what do I do? Do I wallow? People don't know my presentation. Do I get up and make excuses? No, I followed these exact steps.
I'm going to say it a better way. You set the gold standard, and all the other speakers are probably like, "Oh, we should have gone first."
There you go. That's a nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. I got you. So 1, 2, 3. What's number 4?
Number 4 is OPA. So now to tie it all together before I go into the audience, I have to, just like my son, I have to know my outcome and visualize it. I have to know the purpose of why I'm there, and then I'm ready to take action. So OPA.
What did you call it again?
It's called OPA, Outcome, Purpose, Action. The acronym is OPA. So I got to wrap up these 4 steps. So this really, it solidifies the belief, the physical expression, the external focus. It solidifies it in an outcome. So I'll even write out my outcome, write on my little notebook, and what's the outcome of this presentation? How do I want people leaving this room? And then why am I here? Why? What's the purpose of this outcome? Right? And boom, and now I act. Now I'm ready. I've seen the end. I know why. So my imagination is engaged. My emotion is engaged through purpose. My imagination is engaged through outcome. And now I need to actually do what I'm supposed to do.
I feel like there was a movie, and I keep going back to My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and they used to say Opa. Was it Opa? I don't even know. What
it was Opa. It's Opa.
It was Opa. Okay, so
yeah.
There's no relation, of course. I'm sure
no.
Okay.
But I get that a lot when I sit in the audience, and people go Opa, and it's flaming cheese.
What does it mean?
Flaming cheese.
Oh, does it really?
They like the cheese on fire in front of your table. And they go, Opa!
Oh, so it actually, okay, so it really is a word, and I'm really not imagining something.
No, you got it.
So we're not talking about flaming cheese here.
No flaming cheese.
Outcome, purpose, and action.
Outcome focused, purpose driven. That's what I want to be.
Okay.
Outcome focused, purpose driven. Got it. Action oriented.
All right. Outcome focused, purpose driven, action oriented.
Right. I want to go for it. I want to get out. I want my nervous system driving me towards an outcome, right? And so I've really worked on getting there with the belief about my customer, the physical expression. I'm using my energy the proper way. I got this external focus. I've asked myself some really great, compelling questions to get myself focused on the audience. And now I wrap it up by creating my OPA.
Okay. I like it. Good. So we're on 5 of 12 here.
So now this is the first step in interpersonal communication or influence or persuasion, right? So now I'm gone from intrapersonal, which was belief, physical expression, external focus, and OPA. And now I'm entering interpersonal, which is rapport is number 1. Rapport.
Okay.
And rapport, everybody knows what rapport means, but I really want you to kind of think about at the core of it, rapport is like, trust, and respect. I want people to like me. I want people to trust me. And I want them to respect me. In order to get that, I got to give it first. So going out liking the audience is, number 1, just the intention of it. You don't have to, sometimes you're not going to be able to match a mirror or wear the same color. those things you learn in sales one-on-one. Right now, people can feel the intent behind what you're saying. So intentionally like the people that you're doing business with, like the people that's in the audience, like them, right? Go out with warmth, go out with love, go out with gratitude, go out with those things, because you got all of this beautiful confidence working for you. Now go out and elevate them through liking them, genuinely like them. Also, trust that they're going to respond to what you're saying. Trust it. Trust it, trust it. Remember, this is not a competition, okay? The people that come out and trust that I'm going to respond, or trust that this is going to be a great meeting, is really going to show a lot of confidence. And I like that. I like people to have that trust. I'm already elevating you if I'm sitting in your audience. If I invited you into my office, then I've surrendered that time to you. Trust that I'm going to respond. Don't give me that ball back. Do you like what I'm saying? Do you like what I'm saying? I don't trust that I'm going to like it. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Offer trust in how you're delivering. And ultimately, respect the audience and how you treat them, and respect yourself and how you go out. So to show a level of respect to the audience, right? By framing things appropriately, by making sure that that's, again, in your intention as you're going out.
How would it manifest itself, though, if I'm in sales and I've taken a meeting? How would it manifest itself that I didn't trust or respect my buyer? Would it be more like, and you gave the illustration, don't ask, did you like, or what do you think? Or, is that how it would manifest itself?
It's going to manifest in your physiology and your eye contact. It's like and how uncomfortable you are with some of the things that you're saying to them, right? So I've seen people sell me and be uncomfortable with what my response is going to be. That's that's poor selling. That's poor influence. If I gave you the meeting, I'm asking you to, if you're going to manipulate me in a good way, not in a way that you're expecting me not to like what you're offering, or you're waiting from a neutral perspective to see whether or not you did a good job. Well, that's not how you get rapport. Rapport is like, my time is the most precious resource I have. Trust that I'm going to get what you're saying. Trust that I'm going to understand it and buy and want to do business with you. Come out with that level of trust, right? And it's really a unique and interesting way of looking at it, but you'll see people sell our influence and wait to see what your response is going to be before they can feel good in their presentation.
This morning, I had a call with our insurance sales rep, and his name is Seamus. And he actually is a replacement to a rep that we had, which was just awful, god awful, to the point that, in emails, I would send an email and say, hello, whatever her name was. And she would write back, not even greeting me as a customer, not even greeting me. She wouldn't say, hey, Mario, thanks so much for reaching out, and here's the answer to the question. She would just write the answer to the question and send. And it was just so flagrant and disrespectful in terms of the engagement. So I get on a call with him today. I reached out to him and I said, look, I don't know what I'm not buying from you, but I need to know what are the other things that I should be considered buying, right? So that was the opening of that. How often do you get that from a salesperson? Like, I don't know what you have, but I think I should be buying something. So tell me what it is I should be buying, right? So he gets on the phone. And he was a few minutes late, and it was because he had to download the app, wait for this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. So he was late. He gets on. In every question, he nailed it. He knew that we were an LLC. He knew that we were a member-owned company. He had done his homework. He was saying, here are some of the things that you should be thinking about. Does this make sense if you did this, given that you have this environment? And I'm like, whoa, like the last two sales reps that I had from our insurance company didn't even know that we were a member-led organization, right? So it was just like, it was like night and day.
Right.
At the end of the discussion, he didn't ask me, so, what do you want to do next? It was based upon what we talked about. It sounded like, here are some things that you're looking for and that you possibly are in need of. Is that correct? Right. And it was like, yes, that's exactly right.
That's a beautiful illustration.
He built that rapport instantly with me because of understanding respecting who he was speaking to, right, as a buyer. And he built trust with me because every question I asked, he used what was pertinent to me and my business. And that's how I was able to instantly, I left the call. I said, listen, you tell your manager to email me because I want to give him feedback between you and the other schmuck that I had that was on the account. And I'm talking about night and day differential. You did a fabulous, fantastic job. And
absolutely. And that's a beautiful illustration. And I have nothing else to say. That was beautiful. That was beautiful to talk about that and how that's done.
So I want to get into your 6th point under the interpersonal communications category. But before we do that, Rod, everybody listening in, listen in to this short, brief commercial break.
Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 2nd annual STAR Executive Mind Exchange Sales Event. Join us at STAR, February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, to mix and mingle with forward-thinking sales executives and thought leaders. Vengreso will be leading an interactive session on how to stand out and excel with video to drive more sales. As an event partner, we're excited to extend a $250 savings to all registrants. Simply visit frost.com/Vengreso and use the discount code MARIO at registration. That's www.frost.com/Vengreso, VENGRESO, and use the discount code MARIO.
All right, Rod. So before we left, we were about to get on to the 6 of 12 points that we're going through in terms of persuasion. It was a fantastic discussion. And the last one we left off of was number 5, which was build rapport, or rapport, like, trust, and respect, right? Your targeted audience or the person that you're speaking to. So give me number 6. What do we got
number
for number
6? Is you want to control focus through asking amazing, relevant questions. So in the last example you gave, you talked about how he used questions to control focus, right? He heard your outcomes. He heard, and his questions were questions that not only does questions control focus, but questions absolutely control attitude, right? So I don't want to ask questions is what was wrong with the last 3 situations you did and you see people do it that way, right? They go into thinking somehow I'm being vulnerable by asking questions that no, the customer wants outcomes. They want, I had a client one time, they wanted us to do a presentation and they wanted to start this presentation at the Bellagio. They paid for all of their customers to come. They gave them all $5,000 to gamble. So you could think about the money that was spent here. And they wanted me to do the presentation. They wanted me to close the presentation. And they showed me the agenda. Well, the year before, out of all 25 products, they had one product that was awful. And it was just awful. But they didn't put any attention to the other 24 great products. The CEO thought he was being really a good CEO and good leader by focusing on the product that was bad. And he wanted to come out and start the presentation by saying, we screwed up and we want to know how you feel about the failure and the disaster of the product. And I was just kind of like, we're not interested in doing this presentation. You guys are on your own. And he got so offended. And then finally he threw us the agenda and he said, what would you do? And I said, well, these people are coming to freaking Vegas to grow their business, not focus on a failed product.
Yeah.
Right. So I would spend 2 minutes on it. We fixed that. Now let's focus on the other 24 great products and where we're going to go with this product and what's going to happen and not only how did we remedy this situation, but how do we take something that we looked at as a failure and double what we want to do the following year? How do we turn it into another situation? So we came up with all of these great questions and they sold more in that week-long conference than they did the previous year to their customers. And it was all in compelling, excellent, sort of Da Vinci-like questions that control focus, controls your emotional state, and adds incredible value. Before I can create value for people, the questions have to lead the way, right? Remember, you're interrupting people in any sale, even when I go to a presentation, I go and daydream about something else. How do you get me back engaged into the discussion? Ask a question. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point. And going to the conversation I had earlier with Seamus, that was exactly what he did. He asked questions that he had studied where it could go based upon the product portfolio that they had. And when we talked about something that was not part of their product portfolio, he identified, here's the focus of what we do. And we have a partner, which I can refer you over for this other one. Oh, okay, yeah. So let me come back now to over here. And he brought me right back.
Absolutely.
Over to where he wanted to talk about what for property and casualty type of insurance service. Now, I'm probably going to get 1,000 messages from all the P&C insurance reps listening to my podcast.
Right. That's right.
But I'm good, guys. Everybody's listening. I'm good. But I get it. And he definitely controlled the focus. And unbeknownst to me, it was a very natural process. And now as we're talking about it, as a result of this podcast, now I'm thinking back, well, yeah, like he very much controlled the focus of the conversation by asking relevant questions pertaining to my business and also what was pertinent for potential growth, right?
Versus telling you. He could have told you these things and it wouldn't have been as impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Good. All right. I love it. Number 7.
Number 7 is you have to have the courage to challenge people to grow and to change. With my customers and any audience that I'm speaking to, people want to be challenged. We love reality TV shows. We love sports. We love things where there's a challenge. And in my life right now, I'm waiting for somebody to challenge me appropriately. And what I mean by that is challenge me towards greatness, not a threat, no fear, threat, and intimidation, but challenge me to step up my game. Challenge me to do things differently and do it appropriately. Right. And sometimes I'll use examples. I'll use examples of other organizations. The next step is going to support you in doing that. And I'll use sort of things that people really can't debate. Either you're growing or you're dying. Our organization has to expand. They have to grow. They have to do things differently. Mario, you know that. And what I'm here to do is I know that we're creatures of habit. And as your coach and support, I'm really going to push you to make some changes. And I know that especially when you're already successful, it's so easy to rest on that success and not anticipate, not look out in the future. I'm going to ask you a question. What are 3 things that you can do right now to really proactively move your organization in a more appropriate, faster way towards the vision that you've created, right, in this particular area? So again, you can see how these stack. But you got to make sure that people want to be challenged. And if you have the courage to do it, people love you for it. Because again, we want our patterns interrupted. I know I need to work out. No, and I do. I know that I needed to exercise more. I know I need to meditate more. I know. And when people do it appropriately, I love them for it.
Interesting. You mentioned that many years ago, I was selling, one of my accounts was McKesson Corporation. And McKesson is the largest pharmaceutical distribution company in the world. And I think they're number 6 on the Fortune 100 list. At the time, they were number 4, Fortune 14 when I used to manage that account. And I remember I asked the global CIO who we used to sell to, and he and I became great friends. He came to my wedding and we just became really good friends. He's since retired in the last couple of years. But I asked him, I said, what makes you take a meeting from vendors or salespeople? And he said, well, look, I get a bazillion calls, a bazillion emails. My admin is the gatekeeper. She blocks pretty much everything and filters everything out and puts it where it needs to go. My primary focus is working with strategic vendors who are impacting our business, right? That's number 1. But number 2, if I should take a meeting, what I want to know is when you come in, I don't want you to ask me stupid questions. So there's stupid questions about what's my business goals and where I want to lead the IT organization. He's like, are you kidding me? You probably should have spent a couple hours with one of my 3,500 employees in my IT organization running the largest, pharmaceutical distribution company in the world, right? No. What I want to know is he said, tell me what my competitors are doing and how I can be better than my competitors.
There you go. That's beautiful.
And so it just reminds me of what you just said about challenging people to grow and to change, or challenge people to greatness, is that what he cared about was, if you had information of how my competitors were doing something, don't tell me how I could be the same. Tell me how I could be better than them.
That's right. That's the challenge.
That's where he listened to, and that's why I would take, that's what he said, that's why I would take new vendor meetings.
This is beautiful. We can write a book on just these examples and these principles, because that's absolutely what every leader wants.
Wiley and Sons, if you're listening, why don't you reach out to Rod and myself?
That's right.
All right, good. So that's number 7. Let's get to number 8 here.
Number 8 is you have to engage imagination. And so you got to remember, when you're communicating to people, they're in one of 3 areas in their mind at all times. I'm either in memory, where I'm thinking of something that happened yesterday, or you say something and I think about the past. I'm in imagination, where I'm thinking about the future and maybe not paying attention to what you're saying, right? You can kind of see people doze off, or their mind is elsewhere. Or I'm focused. I'm focused on you, what you're saying, and how it impacts me. And so 100% of the time, people are either in memory, imagination, and focus. If I want them in focus, I have to engage imagination, right? Engaging imagination, the most powerful way of engaging imagination is a story. So if you notice, I'll go over the principle, and then what Mario will do is he'll go, let me tell you about this. And you guys, you get more focused on listening for the principle in his story than you do listening to the definition of the principle. Okay? So the stories count. Stories matter. Examples matter, right? Have a story in your sales presentation that's relevant to this organization. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that you say that, Mr. CEO. The last client, the CEO in the organization didn't care about what the competition was doing. He didn't want to hear anything about it. In fact, he wanted us to come in and just completely validate exactly what he was doing. He hired us to validate, to feel better about himself. And let me tell you not only did you just validate what he was saying, but you reinforced it, and you showed that he's on the right track before you go into answering that question that he just created. So you can see how stories work really, really well. Always have 3-4 stories throughout your presentation that you can pull out at any time you see you're losing focus or energy in the room.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I love what you said here, because I like to think of this as the story of the possibilities.
Absolutely.
Right? And this requires us as salespeople, we need to know the customer case studies.
That's right.
We need to listen to and watch the videos that marketing may be producing about the benefits that an organization received.
Absolutely.
And back to your earlier discussion about outcome-led, what were we talking about? When I forget which point it was. Outcome focused.
Yeah,
right?
outcome focused, yes.
Outcome focused. So back to that is, I'm with you 100% that if you can incorporate into these stories what the business outcome and the business impact was, those are going to be very powerful, because now you're engaging, to your point, the imagination. I love it. Absolutely. So here's the thing. We are flat out of time.
Awesome.
And we only got through 8 of 12 to the art of persuasion here, the 12 steps to persuasion. So I'm going to have to do what I have only done one time in the history of Selling with Social. And that is, I'm going to have to invite you back to be on the show in the next couple months.
I would love to come back. Love to come back and finish it up.
Fantastic. Well, what we'll do is, first off, before I let you go, do me a favor. How do people connect with you? Is it through LinkedIn? Is it through Twitter? Is it through email?
Sure. Yeah. Again, LinkedIn is really, really great. And that's Rod E. Hairston, right? On LinkedIn, RNASP. And that's N like Nancy, A is in Apple, S is in Sierra, and P is in Papa, National Association of Sales Professionals.com. So we would love to support you. It's a beautiful organization. It's free membership. We take care of our members in a very, very beautiful way. And we would love to have you.
So we'll make sure we put your LinkedIn profile, which is Rod E. Hairston, the link into the show notes, along with a link back to NASP. And Rod, before I let you go for this particular show, I have one more question for you. And that is, your all-time favorite movie, what is it?
If I have to pick one, then my favorite movie would be The Matrix, the first one.
The Matrix, number one. I still don't get The Matrix. It always confused me. I never understood it. All right. I think we've had The Matrix on the show once or twice. I love it. Rod, you've been a fantastic guest. I appreciate you joining me. And all of you listening in right now, stay tuned for this next message right here. Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.
Did you register yet for the STAR event? STAR is a Frost & Sullivan Executive Mind Exchange event for sales leaders taking place February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Make sure you register for the event at frost.com/Vengreso and use the discount code MARIO at registration for a $250 savings.